and we'll get started. Okay, everyone, happy April. Welcome to Symbiota Support Group for this April Fool's Day 2024. First, a couple of announcements to start us off. One of those is just a reminder about the Digital Data Conference. This is a hybrid event, so you can come in person or you can participate online. This is the week of Memorial Day, not including Memorial Day, so May 29th through 31st. That is Wednesday through Friday of that last week of May. And we wanted to congratulate our biodiversity data capacity fellows. So thanks to iDig Bio workshop funding, Lindsay and I and a bunch of other collaborators are putting together a workshop. And that workshop has involved funding a bunch of folks to come to the Digital Data Conference in person and participate in that workshop. So there was an application process and then an anonymous review, and these are the folks who were able or hopefully are going to be there in person at the Digital Data Conference. So congrats.
And Katie, these are people who hadn't previously been involved before, is that right?
Yeah, so there was a preference for folks who had not been in person to an iDig Bio event. So we're happy to get some more folks in here. And I think Chilla's in here, so Chilla will be there.
Hello, I'm here.
Yay. So if you want to participate in that conference or in that workshop in person or virtually, then it's going to be held on Friday, May 31st from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. with an hour break in there for lunch. And that is going to be Mountain Time or Central Time? I think it's Mountain? Kansas time. So that's where it's going to be in Lawrence, Kansas. And I think it's going to be a fun time. We also wanted to remind people about the upcoming portal campaigns for the bryophyte and lichen herbaria. We're doing pretty much a combined campaign through April and the beginning of May. The first portal campaign meeting is going to be this Friday. If you haven't heard anything about these portal campaigns and you would like to be involved in them, aka you have bryophyte or lichen collections you'd like to be involved in, then I think Lindsay just put a link in the chat to participate, get more information and participate in those campaigns. So that's going to be a great time. All right, so today's topic is going to be kind of on the shorter side, which is great because then we have more time for discussion. We're going to talk about leaving, receiving, and reviewing feedback on records in Symbiota portals. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that, so we're going to walk through what those ways are. So users can leave feedback by commenting on records in a Symbiota portal. There's also the option to email the curator or the collections manager or whoever's the listed contact. And then there's also a public editing feature that I don't think people know very much about all the time. And then we'll also talk about other ways of getting feedback about your records that come from GBIF and from iDig Bio. Okay, so how users can leave feedback on records. I mentioned the comments feature. That's probably one of the most straightforward ways to do it. So let's say that I am the collections manager for the ASU lichen collection. If I ever want to look at my comments, then I can log in to my administration control panel. And I can view the posted comments here. Well, where do these comments come from? If I do a search of specimens, oops, just a search here. And I look for something in my county. And I think I see something wrong with this specimen record. If I am a logged in user, so you don't have to have any editor privileges or administrator privileges or anything, you just have to be a logged in user, then you should see a comments tab here. Actually, you would see it either way, but you would have to log in before you can leave a comment. And you can leave your comment here and you can submit it. And that comment would show up in this administrator control panel as a posted comment. So if you are a collections administrator, then you probably want to go in and look at your comments every once in a while just to see if there's anything that needs to be edited in your data. So if I view this, we can see that this person is asking for more information, for example. This person is saying, hey, I think I found a problem with your county. So I could click on the specimen record and open it up in my occurrence editor and verify whether this is whether this person's comment is likely to be correct. So I could look for Mount Crawford in New Hampshire, and this person says that it's in Coos County instead of Carroll County. I don't know that for certain, so I'm not going to look at that right now, but you could make a change here. And then you can go back to the comment and you can mark it as reviewed, which means that it's not going to show up in your internal list unless you look for reviewed. You can hide the comment from the public, which is not the same as deleting it. It's just saying that, hey, I have already addressed this comment, and so it no longer really applies, but it's nice to have that history of comments still kind of stored on the back end and also available to you later. So when you hide comment from public, you can also mark it as reviewed, and that way it's stored and you can have it for later. Deleting a comment is probably what you would want to do if you just find like a spam comment. But if you find something that is legitimate feedback, then you probably just want to mark it as reviewed and hide the comment from the public. So that's pretty easy to curate unless you have lots and lots of them, and you can decide which workflow works best for you. And that's how you can get one type of feedback. So there was some discussion in a previous Symbiota support group about improving the commenting features. So we wanted to take probably just about 10 minutes to see what people's thoughts were about improving the comments features. So what are some wish list edits that people want to the commenting feature? Like one thing that I have seen people ask for is that comments get emailed to the listed contact. I don't know if that would be super of interest to people, but I don't know. Lindsay, do you think of any others?
I'm going to put some in the chat.
Oh, okay.
That are in Symbiota discussions.
Okay, Lindsay is going to put a few in the chat that have been ideas that other folks have raised. Does anyone else have any feedback about comments?
I'm asking about adding a comment feature to checklists.
Oh,
and that could be the comments could be included with the species page. And it's especially true with neotropical stuff, tropical stuff in general, where you're it isn't quite as cut and dried, maybe as far as what is what and what is where and everything, as in the temperate zone.
Alan says maintain formatting in the comments. So do you mean like formatting of, would there be tables, or are you saying links? Like, what are you thinking, Alan? All lines get, yeah. So one limitation of comments is that that's going into a database, and that database is probably only storing that data as like it's called a varchar, which is just text. And so probably any formatting gets stripped from it. And if it had like HTML tags, that probably also gets stripped from it because of security vulnerabilities. Avery, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, so when we first started looking at the comments and doing more with that on the CERNEC portal, I noticed that if Marcus reviewed is fine and then you can still find it and all that. But when we used to click hide comment from public view, if you were to go back to the display for that record, it would say that the comment is being reviewed for like abuse of the system, something like that.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I
Like the
wasn't
wording was
sure-
kind of weird.
Yeah, but it only did that if you mark hide from public view, as if I don't know, it seemed like the feature was made almost for like if someone was, I don't know, saying something nasty or spam or something in the comments and you wanted to remove it. And I stopped doing hide from comment from public view completely and only do Marcus review just because I wasn't sure if that would affect anything on the commenter's end, because we do have plenty of botanists that leave comments on determinations and I didn't want to block anyone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll review the wording on that. It does not make any changes or flag any users or anything. So you don't have to worry about them getting a bad review, but that's a really good point. Thanks for that.
Okay, thanks.
And then Bob says, is there a simple way to let the commenter know their comment has been addressed? Not currently. And one thing we've also heard from is that when someone leaves a comment, there isn't necessarily a way to contact that commenter immediately, because if you just see their username, you don't see their email address. So I could see folks wanting a way to see the email address of the commenter when someone leaves a comment. Gary asks, can you add a response field to the comment? Yeah, that's a good idea too. You could theoretically just leave another comment that says, we reviewed this and blah, 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 blah. But you're right, it wouldn't be linked as like a response to that comment. I see some thumbs up on Bob's idea and also Gary's idea, so good to know. Megan is also saying yes to that.
Just a curiosity. I know at some point there had been discussions of adding like kind of like how traits is set up, where it's a separate table, and so people who are not necessarily editors can add traits to things. Is there going to be a similar thing for determinations? Because right now a lot of the comments are determinations essentially.
You know, I think that there is some work toward that direction. I don't think it's done, and it might require another grant to like finalize, but I do know that some people are working on that infrastructure or have worked on that infrastructure. Oh, cool. Megan says, also for the email of the commenter, maybe a checkbox and an email field where they can be emailed by request only. Yeah, you don't want the emails to just be public. Yeah, it would probably be only the email would be displayed if you are a logged in administrator or something like that. Because you're right. Like we put some emails as public, like the contacts of that people list in the metadata, but those are what people have chosen to put on their metadata. Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback, everyone. Feel free to comment additionally on the links that Lindsay put in the chat. Those are in our GitHub discussions board. So if you have a GitHub account, you can just make comments directly on those. Or if you don't, you can just create a GitHub account. It's not that hard. And you can just comment and contribute to the discussion that way too. Okay, I'm going to move on to a couple of other ways that you can, oh, we already talked about that. Get feedback on your records. They include, and you've probably seen this. Again, if I do another search from the public, and you open up a record, there is a, at the very bottom of the public display page, there is information about how to get more information about the specimen. Or if I weren't logged in, so let's see if I'll take this into an incognito window. You can see for additional information, contact this person, see an error, log in. So someone can instead just contact whoever is the listed collection manager. So this brings up the point that it's important to have an updated contact associated with your collection. And as a reminder about where you can update that contact is you must be an administrator. And then you go over to the administration control panel where it says edit metadata. And then there's a tab called contacts and resources. And that's where you'll want to put that information. So that's the information that's going to show up on the public page here. And it's also the first primary contact is going to be the one listed on the public display page of each specimen. So make sure that this contact is up to date if you want to receive information about your records. And then another option that is available is the public editing feature. And this is probably lesser known, and it must be turned on for your collection in order for people to make public edits. In the collection metadata, there's an option here that says allow public edits. And there's a little bit of information here. And this information that I'm going to tell you is that if someone is logged in, they can modify specimen records in your collection. However, those edits are not automatically applied in the same way that happens when you are an explicit editor for a collection. Instead, someone has to go into, well, an administrator has to go into the review, verify occurrence edits table, which might take a moment to load. And then they have to specifically approve those edits. So here's the modify or the review modify edits table. And you can search for specific types of edits. So you can search for anything that has not been applied. And that would be a way of finding any public edits that have been made to your records. I'm not sure if there are any, but we can check. Yes, so Alan, who I think is on this call, said, hey, I think this county should be Coos instead of Carroll. I could review that. I could check this box and say apply those edits. And then this would be switched to applied. And that edit would then be reflected in my specimen record. And if you're like, oh, Alan's doing great work, I'm going to apply all of these records or all of these edits, you can just batch select them all, apply them all, or just a few, depending on what you agree to do. So that's a really great option for your collection because it's a way of people being able to change the data, or at least kind of put the infrastructure in place for the data to change very quickly to the right values, hopefully. And then you can just batch approve a bunch of them at one time. Okay, are there any questions about either of those three methods of receiving feedback or leaving feedback on specimen records? Kirsten asks, when I get contacted through the specimen window contact, the SciNet admin is always copied on the email. Does the SciNet admin want to be copied on the email response? I don't really know, but they can ignore the emails. So And if they don't want to receive the emails, then they can take their email address out of one of the configuration files, and that would cease getting those emails too. Any other questions? All right, then we'll move right along to another way of getting feedback about your specimen records. And those can be the data quality flags that are provided by GBIF and IDIG-Bio. So this is kind of on a more holistic data set level. So these are ways of finding records that have particular issues throughout your whole collection. So for example, I'm going to go to this collection profile using CCH2, as I often do. So this particular collection publishes their data to GBIF, and that is an important caveat that in order to see the data quality flags, then you do have to publish your data as a data set in GBIF. But if I scroll down to the bottom, and if I publish that data to GBIF through this particular Symbiota portal, then there will automatically become a link to that GBIF data set down here. And I could look at that data set. Then I'll go into the metrics tab. And then if I scroll down on the bottom left side, there's this option called occurrences per issues and flags. So I'm scrolling down, looking at the data quality flags. Then I can click on any one particular flag. Some of these flags are less important to tackle, like you can see institution match fuzzy. That's because we have matched this collection kind of on an institution. And so it's like, hey, I'm not sure what your institution is versus your collection. Not super important. Also things like geodetic datum assumed to be WGS 84. Maybe that's something that you want to batch edit or batch assume in your data set, but maybe not. Coordinate rounded, that probably just meant that you had an unrealistically large number of significant digits in your coordinates. But if you go into some of these other ones like geodetic datum invalid, that means, oh, there's a value in the geodetic datum field, which is the field where you list which geodetic or geographic projection you used for the world. So it's usually NAD 27 or WGS 84 or one of those. And you can click on that particular flag and look at all the specimens that have that particular problem in your data set. And you can click on one of those specimen records. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a direct link to your record, which is nice because then you don't have to do like a catalog number search. You can just go straight here. Pro tip, if you don't know it yet, if you hold the control button, or does this happen when you hit command where you can open a new tab?
Just right click.
Right click. So you can either right click and say open a new tab, or at least on Windows, you can hold control and click and it will open up your specimen record in a new tab. That way you don't have to keep on going back. And then here you can open up the occurrence editor and you can say, oh, I just said WGS 1987 instead of the standard value of WGS 87, or I don't even know if that is a projection. Well, you could do more investigation. And maybe you find that a lot of your records have WGS 87. Gotta load this occurrence, hopefully. Yeah, go down here, open it up. This one says that's definitely not right. That's not a datum value. That must be the elevation it put in the wrong field. So if you find any batch problems, you can fix them with the batch editor, which is, actually it's not here. You would have to go through your edit existing occurrence records, and then it would show up. But since I'm just viewing one specimen here, then you're not going to see it. But you can make those changes here and save. Or if you're like, oh man, this is a big problem, you could go back into your edit existing occurrence records, look for anything with a geodetic datum that equals this. It's not a big problem in my data set apparently, but you could do the batch editing from here if you needed to. I think I saw a question, Avery.
So Katie, when on GBIF under the occurrences per issues and flags, when it calls something fuzzy, like collection match fuzzy, what does it mean exactly?
That means that it was unable to link your collection to a collection in their registry of scientific collections, like exactly one-to-one. And it's a little bit challenging with herbaria because sometimes herbaria are listed as institutions and sometimes herbaria are listed as collections. And GBIF says that those are two different things. So I think that's kind of a bigger question to talk about with GBIF at some point to figure out like, how do we get rid of all these fuzzy flags? But what it means in principle is that it couldn't find the exact match to your data or
Got
to
it.
your
Thanks.
collection. Rich asks, can you download the results of a GBIF data flag rather than looking at individual records? You know, I don't know the answer to that question, but I assume that you could. Yes, yes, you can. Let me share my screen again. So I'll go back to my metrics page. And if you click on any one flag, so occurrence status inferred from, well, maybe like country coordinate mismatch, you can click download, and you do have to be logged in order to download, but that's how you can get a download of one particular data flag. Any other questions on that one? Once you have made edits in your portal, they will not necessarily be automatically reflected in GBIF because you'll need to refresh your GBIF snapshot. And as a reminder of how to do that, you go back into your administration control panel and go to Darwin Core Archive Publishing. And you click this Create Refresh Darwin Core Archive. And if you are publishing to GBIF from your portal that you're working in, then it will just send a new copy of the data. In about a half an hour or so, you'll see the new data reflected in the portal, depending on what GBIF is, or how busy GBIF is at that time. Okay, and then another way that you can get feedback about your data is the IDIG-Bio data quality flags. And I think some of these overlap with the GBIF data quality flags, but it's kind of nice to have multiple sources. So to find any data quality flags from IDIG-Bio, you'll want to go find your collection on this link, the publishers page. So I'm looking for the Hoover herbarium. I'm looking for the vascular plants. Then you can click on that data set. Okay, so that's step one. I found my data set in that page. Then you can scroll down and kind of like in GBIF, you just scroll down and then there will be a data corrected section, and then a list of all these flags that were applied to your specimen records. And I believe, yeah, will show you a percent of records of this flag. This shows you how many records had this flag. And if you need more information about what those flags are, you can hover over and they'll tell you what they do. And again, then you would have to go and make those edits directly in your portal. I don't know if these will actually give you, okay, they will. So you can click on any one of these flags and it will give you all of the specimens or all the records that have that flag. And you can view those individual records. And again, if you scroll down, there should be a source for that record. I think it might just be, no. Where is that direct link? Huh, maybe there is not a direct link to the record. But you would be able to look it up according to the catalog number. And then if it helps, you can, in this screen where it's showing you all of the specimen records that have that flag, note that you can change which columns you're viewing. So you could add a catalog number column or barcode value or an occurrence ID column. You can remove other things. That way you could just copy the catalog number straight from here instead of having to go into each individual record. And here you can also download these records. So you would just go up to the search records section and then click download. And then you would enter your email and download a CSV file. And it would probably take a couple minutes depending on how big your download is. But that way you could look at all of your records in one place too. And then once you have made any edits in IDIG Bio, the data in IDIG Bio are refreshed probably only like quarterly or maybe biannually. But if you've made a bunch of edits to your data and you're like, hey, IDIG Bio, I want you to reharvest my data, you just need to send an email to IDIG Bio and ask them to do that. And then they'll put that into their queue to get your data refreshed. All right, so those are some of our most straightforward ways of getting feedback about your data. Do you have any questions? And if you want to learn more about those data quality flags, those will also be covered during the digital data workshop on May 31st as well. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a suggestion maybe we can talk about. I know that in iNaturalist, when you sign in, there are a couple of icons next to your name in the upper right corner. One being kind of like an email icon, another one, just like a talk bubble, which you link onto and you see comments or emails. Maybe we could have something like that in the portals.
That you'd be able to see the email associated with a user, or like where
Right.
do you see that?
That would be associated with the user.
Mm-hmm. Like if you click their name, then it would show you some profile information about them.
Well, no, I'm thinking like if you're the user and you log in,
Mm-hmm.
and not really as a user, but more like an administrator,
Mm-hmm.
and those comments of the specimens would be addressed to you or associated with your collection.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some sort of flag like that would appear once you sign in.
It would appear that you have messages or you have comments.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. So like a little more straightforward of a notification system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Sure.
Other comments or questions? All right, well, if there are no more comments or questions about feedback, I'm going to end recording.